Hello and welcome. In this video, we will be learning about how to build and manage the layout of a business site that has been built using the SAP Build Work Zone using the concept of groups. So let's get started. Now in the introduction video of this series, we had learned that a business site is basically a collection of applications from different sources or providers. And there are primarily two kinds of providers that can provide content to a business site. Remote content providers, for example, your on-premise SAP system, and BTP content providers. In this video, we are going to focus on how to manage the layout of the business site when you are using the HTML5 repository in the BTP sub account as your content provider. So let's have a quick look at my sub account. Here I can see that in the sub account, I have my business application studio service activated. So this is the development environment that we use to develop our HTML5 applications. I also have the SAP Build Work Zone service activated. This is the service or the application that we use to build our business site. At the sub account level, I also have my HTML5 repository. Now, this repository stores all the HTML5 based applications that have been deployed in this particular sub account. And this is then the local HTML5 repository, the local repository. As you can see, there are a number of applications that have been deployed here already in my sub account. And this is going to be the content that I want to integrate in my business site. Now, in another video, we will see the development process that goes behind creating these applications. For now, we will just focus on once the content is already present in your HTML5 repository. So once the apps have already been developed, thereafter, how do we go about setting up the layout of the business site? So we are going to focus on just the layout part in this particular video. So this particular HTML5 repository that we see here, this is going to be my content provider for the business site. So let's talk a little bit now about how we want the business site to finally look and behave like. We have all these apps in our BTP content provider in the HTML5 repository that we just saw. And within the business site itself, I want to control access to these apps. So I'm going to use roles for that. And based on the inputs from my business, I plan to set up 4 roles: a purchaser, a senior purchaser, a data manager, and a goods movement manager. A purchaser should be able to access the vendor display app and also create purchase orders. A senior purchaser should, of course, be able to do all that the purchaser can do. And in addition, the senior purchaser should also be able to unblock a vendor, manage source lists and info records, and also approve purchase orders. A data manager is going to be able to access the apps that have to do with the data management aspect. And finally, the warehouse manager can access the apps that have to do with the goods movement, such as the goods receipt and the goods returns app, and also the material display app. So these are the roles that I want to have in my business site, and I want to control access to the applications through these roles. Next thing is, we don't want all our apps to be simply listed out one after the other in the business site, right? So that would not be too nice, not too user friendly. Instead, I want to see applications grouped or classified in some meaningful way. So for that, we have the concept of groups. I plan to create a group called as vendor management to club together all the apps that have to do with managing a vendor, such as the creation, deletion of vendor, blocking of the vendor, etc. Next, a group called source management. Thirdly, a group called material management for apps such as the create, block, delete material. A group called purchase management for apps such as creation of the purchase order, approval of the purchase order. And finally, a group called the goods movement management to bring together all the apps that have to do with goods movement, such as the app to post receipts and to post returns. Now, these groups that we see here, they are going to ensure that apps are displayed to the user in a meaningful fashion, clubbed together, provided I have access to them through the particular roles. Now, this is a very important concept to understand. Roles control access to an app. Groups control how the apps are going to appear on your screen. Right? This means that as an end user, you may see a particular group when you enter the business site, but you may not necessarily see all the apps within the group. This is because he's missing authorizations for that particular app, right? As an example, if I'm assigned to the role of senior purchaser and I log into my business site, I'm going to see a group called as my vendor management. But I won't see the apps create vendor and change vendor because they are not assigned to the particular role, although they are in the same group. Okay. So this is the final setup that I want in my business site. I want to have these particular roles and I want to have the apps clubbed together in these particular groups. So the first step that we are going to do, we are going to set up the roles that we need. So a quick look at our big picture here. We had learned in the first video of this series that content can be classified based on where it originates from. So you can have content that comes in either from a content provider, or you can have content that is manually configured within the build work zone itself. Now the roles that we had seen, the ones that we want, the purchaser, senior purchaser, all of those roles, they do not exist in the content provider. And so I'm going to um, manually create them within the build work zone itself. So it is manually configured content. So let's go ahead and see how that is going to be done. So now I'm going to create one of the roles as an example, and that is going to be the role of the senior purchaser. Now we had learned earlier that all content within the SAP Build Work Zone is going to be managed within the Content Manager. So let's go to the Content Manager and then let's click on Create and then say Role. Now, in every project, we usually have some very established norms and naming conventions for roles, and of course, they are going to be followed. For now, we are just going to be calling it Senior Purchaser. Let's provide an ID, US for the country, and provide in a description. Click on Save. So this is how we can create a role within the content manager. So if you go back to the content manager, you will see a new item over here with this icon. This icon refers to a role, and you have the title of the role. And the channel is local because it was locally defined within the content manager itself. So as a result of what we have just done over here in content manager, let's take a quick look at our sub account. Let's go to security and then under rule collections. Here we can search for the role with the name that we had just provided, which is senior purchaser. And you can see that a new item here has been created. Now this creation, the creation of this particular role collection in the sub account, it was automatically triggered when we had created the role within the content manager. Okay. And now of course this role can be assigned to the users of this particular sub account to give them access to the apps when they are within the business site. Similarly, let's go ahead and create the remaining three roles: purchaser, data manager, and finally goods movement manager. So let's verify that all of these four roles are available in the sub account under the role collections. So you can see all four are present over here. So this is how we create roles locally, manually within the content manager of the Build Work Zone. So that completes the step number 1. So now let us proceed to step 2, and that is the creation of the groups. We know that a group is a collection of apps that is going to be displayed together under the same group name. So the first group that we are going to create is the vendor management group. And from within the content manager, let's go to the same create button. And this time let's select a group. We provide in a title for the group. Let's just call it vendor management. Put in a description and click on save. So this would then create a new group. And if you go back to the content manager, you can see there's this a new item that has been added here. This is the group, and it is represented by an icon that is different from what you had seen earlier for the role. In a very similar fashion, let's go ahead and create the other 4 groups. Material management, source management, purchase management, and finally goods movement management. So that completes the step 2, in which we have set up the 5 groups that we are going to use to classify our apps. Now let's proceed to step 3. In this step, we are going to choose which of the applications from the content provider, which is in this case the HTML5 repository of the sub account. So which of those applications are going to be made part of the content manager within my SAP Build Work Zone. Now, if I have a look at my HTML5 repository, we can see that the HTML5 repository may contain many applications, right? But maybe we don't want to include all of them into the business side. So this particular step helps us to filter the relevant applications. Let's take a look at the channel manager within the Build Work Zone. And here we can see that a channel already exists. Here we can see a channel that was already created, which points to the HTML5 repository on the sub account in which the Build Work Zone is already active. Okay, so now this channel gets created by default, right? We don't have to manually set it up. So the moment you activate your Build Work Zone service in a sub account, this particular channel gets created automatically. So now let's explore the content that is being offered by this particular channel. For that, we go to the Content Explorer within the Content Manager itself. So within the Content Manager, you have here the Content Explorer, and we select this particular channel. Now you can see all the content that is available on this particular channel, and we can select the ones that we want to include in our business site. In our case, I want to add in all the apps, so I'll just select this particular checkbox and click on Add. Now, if you see, go back to the Content Manager. In addition to the roles and the groups that we had created earlier, we now also have the applications that have been added in from the particular channel in question, which is the HTML5 repository. So now what's next? Let's see. We created the roles, we created the groups, and we chose the apps that we want to include. The next thing is going to be is we have to assign these apps to the particular groups and then to the particular role. So let's get started with the assignment of the apps to the particular groups. And for that, let's go to the Content Manager. And then the first group that we're going to take is the vendor management group. So let's go within that particular group. And as you can see right now, there are no apps assigned to this group. So let's go in the edit mode, and you can then see the complete list of apps that is available in the Content Manager. And out of this list, of course, we are going to choose the apps that have to do with vendor management. So that is going to be create vendor, change vendor, block vendor. Sorry, that's not the one. This is the one. Block vendor, unblock vendor, and display vendor. All right. So this is how we assign a particular app into a particular group. And then just click on save. So now you can see there are 5 apps that we have assigned to this particular group as per the design that we wanted to see. In a similar fashion, let's go ahead and assign apps to the other groups. In the group source management, we are going to assign the app manage source lists and manage info records. In the group material management, we are going to assign the app block material, create material, and finally display material. In the group purchase management, we are going to assign the app create purchase order and then approve purchase orders. And finally, in the group goods movement management, we are going to assign the app to post receipts and post returns. So this completes the process of assigning applications into the relevant groups. Now let's go ahead and assign the applications to the particular roles. So for that, let's take the first role that we had set up, and that was the role of purchaser. And then as you can see, there are 0 apps assigned to this particular role. Let's go in the edit mode. And we know that for the purchaser role, we'd like to assign the application display vendor and create purchase orders. And let's click on save. So now you can see these 2 apps have been assigned to the particular role of purchaser. In a very similar fashion, let's go ahead and assign the applications to the other roles. For the senior purchaser, for the data manager, and finally for the goods movement manager. So that completes the process of assignment of the applications in the particular roles. Now here's the next thing to think about. We will be using the SAP Build Work Zone to create multiple business sites. All right. And of course, the roles for all of those different business sites are going to be created here in the content manager. Now, not each and every one of those roles are going to be applicable for all the business sites, which means that the logical next step is going to be that we will have to assign the roles to the particular business site that we have created. Okay, so that's what we're going to do now. We created 5 roles, as we know, and these roles I'm going to assign to my site. I have here created already a business site, and if you go in the settings, site settings, and go in the edit mode, you have here on the right side assignments, and you can now search for roles that you want to assign to this particular business site. And right now I want to assign all of those roles to the particular business site. All right, and then just click on save. Now this means that all of these 4 roles are available in the business site. It does not mean that every user is going to have access to these particular roles when he logs into the business site. No, that is controlled by your user authorization. This particular assignment just means that these roles are available in the business site but have to be explicitly assigned. Now there is one more important setting that has to be done here in the site settings within the site directory. And in order to access that, let's just click on edit. And then here you find the different settings that you can define for your particular site. And one of them is the display. And under display, we have viewing mode. And here you can select from 3 different options: groups, spaces and pages, new experience. Now, each of these viewing modes allows you to set up the look and feel of your business site in different ways. And for the purpose of this tutorial, we are going to be using the groups viewing mode. So make sure that you have selected groups here and click on save. So this completes all the setup steps that we need to do in order to get our business site up and running. So I am right now in the site directory. So let's go ahead and try to test our business site. So within site directory, we know that the site directory lists all the business sites that have been created. And for each business site, you have this button that says go to site. So let's click on it and see what happens. This is currently displaying an empty page. Now, why is this happening? This is because although I have assigned the applications to the roles and the roles to the business sites, what I have not done is assign a particular role to my user ID. So therefore, that's what we're going to do next. We're going to assign the role of senior purchaser to my user ID. And we do that in the sub account. So let's go to role collections and then search for senior purchaser. Click on edit and put in my user ID for this particular role and click on save. Now, of course, this assumes that the user that you're going to give this particular role to already exists in this sub account. So now let's reload our website and see if this assignment has made any difference. So now you see there are a number of apps being displayed. And in fact, if you notice carefully, these are all the apps that have been assigned to the senior purchaser role. And they appear as grouped or clubbed together under the respective group to which they were assigned while we were setting up the business site. So in light of what we have just done, let us try to answer a few questions. Why do we see the display vendor, block vendor, and unblock vendor apps in one group? Yes, you guessed it right. The answer is this is because all 3 apps have been assigned to one group called as the vendor management. And a group helps you to club together apps into one collection and display them together in your layout. Number 2, why don't I see all the apps under the vendor management group? Now, if you remember, when we were setting up the vendor management group, we had assigned 5 apps to this particular group: the display vendor, block vendor, unblock vendor, and also the create and change vendor. But at the moment, I just see 3. Now, why does this happen? Now, this is because I have been assigned the role of senior purchaser, and the senior purchaser has only the applications display vendor, block vendor, and unblock vendor assigned to it from this particular vendor management group. The other 2 apps, change vendor and create vendor, have not been assigned to the particular role. This is why, although we have assigned 5 applications to the group, we don't see all 5 of them. We just see the 3 which have been assigned to the role. So just to summarize the steps involved in setting up the layout of your business site: define the roles in the content manager of your Build Work Zone. Define the groups that you're going to use to collect the apps. Choose which of the applications from the content provider are going to be made part of the content manager using the Content Explorer. Assign applications to the relevant groups in a logical fashion. Assign applications to their relevant roles. Assign the roles to your business sites within the site directory settings. Within the site settings itself, assign a viewing mode to the business site and finally assign role collections to your users. So I hope now you know how to build the layout of a business site using groups while importing content from an HTML5 repository on BTP. So this was just a basic layout, and in further videos we will expand the topic of business site layout by exploring areas such as site personalization, custom themes, spaces and pages, etc. If you found the content of this video useful, please do consider subscribing to the channel or dropping a like for this video. In the next video, we will be looking at building custom themes in Build Work Zone. So until then, take care and goodbye.